Good morning, people, and welcome to Breakfast Extra, where the tea is always hot, the gist is never watered down, and yes, sometimes the soup, it boils over. I'll come back to that reference in a bit. Let's talk about decent this morning. Now, Nigeria has a long history of trying to mute critics and failing spectacularly. Take the 1970s, Fela Anikulapo Kuti, musician, rebel, prophet with a saxophone. He sang against military rulers, against corruption, against hypocrisy. The response? Well, he was jailed, beaten, and banned. His Kalakuta Republic was raided and burned to the ground. But what happened? Well, he became more radical and more defiant. Instead of silencing him, the regime created anthems that still play today. Fast forward to the 1990s. Ken Saro-Wiwa, writer and activist, dared to expose the oily truth in the Niger Delta. He told the world that while Shell and the state made billions, his Ogoni people drank poisoned water and farmed on spoiled soil. For his words, General Sani Abacha's regime dragged him before a kangaroo tribunal. In November 1995, he and 8 others, the Ogoni 9, were executed. Abacha thought the story ended there, but it didn't. Nigeria was suspended from the Commonwealth. Sanctions hit. Abacha's name is now tied to stolen billions and suspicion of his own death. Saro-Wiwa's name, however, etched in history as a martyr whose words still travel. Now, even in the 21st century, the pattern hasn't changed. In 2020, during the End SARS protests, young Nigerians stood up against police brutality. They marched, they chanted, they tweeted, and at the Lekki toll gates, they were shot upon. Soldiers opened fire. The images of flags stained red and voices drowned in gunfire were meant to end the movement. But what did it do? It didn't. Instead, they deepened the wound and created a permanent scar in our national memory. Now, 2025, Omoyele Sowore is yet another one. Journalist, activist, perennial thorn in the backside of power, I know. The government believes that silencing him, dragging him to court, and demanding that he delete an anti-Tinubu tweet will weaken him. But like those before him, every attempt only swells his symbolism. His defiance fits neatly into this Nigerian continuum. The more you try to choke one man's voice, the louder it echoes. It's called the Streisand effect. You can check it out. Now, this is not just a Nigerian lesson. The fact is, the same story is playing out thousands of miles away in the Himalayas. In Nepal, the government tried to silence an entire generation by pulling the plug on social media, banning TikTok, and clamping down on online speeches. Imagine telling a generation that basically lives online to log off by decree. Well, what followed was predictable. Outrage. By September 5th, protests spread across major cities. Riot police faced off with students. Tear gas met chants. And in a single day, 19 young people were killed. Now, instead of restoring order, repression triggered chaos. Prisons burst open. Thousands escaped. And the Prime Minister found himself perched on a collapsing throne, scrambling to contain the fallout. So what began as an attempt to discipline youth became a landslide, shaking the very core of government. It's different continents, different triggers, but it's the same fire, youth anger. Remember Kenya? Same generation. In Nigeria, as well as in Kenya, the spark is bad governance, joblessness, and police brutality. In Nepal, it was social media ban. Different matches, same explosion. Because when you gag young people, you don't stop them. Instead, you actually push them into the streets. Now, let's be fair. Gen Z isn't always very logical. Critics say that they lack patience, that they are impulsive, emotional, and sometimes reckless. And they are right, but to a point. Because what critics miss is that urgency is a powerful tool. Urgency, when bottled, as dynamite. Mishandled, it explodes in chaos. But if you manage it wisely, it can fuel progress. It can help renew. It can even reform. This is where governments keep missing the plot. They believe that repression is a shortcut to peace. History keeps showing them the opposite. Repression, well, it breeds martyrs. Martyrs, they breed movements, and movements topple regimes. From Mohamed Bouazizi in Tunisia setting himself ablaze in 2010 and igniting the Arab Spring, to Nelson Mandela transforming 27 years in a cell into the end of apartheid, the record is crystal clear. Silence is never permanent. And yet, well, leaders still fall for the same illusion. The idea that there's a mute button for dissent. Well, they press it, they are convinced that they've ended the noise. But what they don't realize is that mute buttons are actually volume knobs. And it only turns up the volume exponentially. So, finally, here's the lesson for both Abuja, Nairobi, and Kathmandu. And for every seat of power where young voices rise, dissent is not a disease to be cured. It's a pressure to be managed. Treat it as fuel, not as fire. You have to engage it, channel it, learn from it. Because if you don't, it will learn how to consume you. And to the leaders who keep reaching for the big stick, remember this: when you clamp on a lid too tightly on a pot of boiling soup, you don't stop it from cooking. You just guarantee that it's going to explode. And when it does, everyone gets burned. Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Extra. My name is Mazino Appeal. It's going to be a fantastic Saturday because I'm here with one of the prettiest news anchors you will find on national television. It's Queen Celestine once again for a Saturday edition of Breakfast Extra.
Morning,
hey, Queen.
Mazino. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
That's a long history. Thank you.
I know. History is very interesting because it's never wrong. It's like mathematics. It's always there for you to go back to and learn from. But we never seem to learn anything, and that's the problem. But tell you what, let me come over. We can have some more conversation because we have so much packed into today's show. Welcome once again to Breakfast Extra.
Welcome again to Breakfast Extra. And still ahead of this Saturday morning on Breakfast Extra, we talk Lagos is in turmoil as the Oworonshoki Demolition pushes angry residents to block Third Mainland Bridge. We'll unpack the tension, the law, and the lives caught in between. Then to Abuja, where the drumbeat for electoral reform is growing louder. Stakeholders say INEC doesn't just need fixing, it needs a full overhaul. In education, JAM uncovers more than 6,000 cases of high-tech exam fraud, from finger blending to AI impersonation. It's a scandal shaking the system. In Adamawa, fear grips Malabu community after a suspected Buruli ulcer outbreak claims lives. We'll ask what lessons Nigeria still hasn't learned on public health. And finally, our weekend warrior, the inspiring story of Faiza Abdul Kadir, the Maiduguri cleaner who returned 4.8 million naira in a season of scarcity. Her integrity shines like a diamond in the rough. That's all coming your way this Saturday. But first, let's take a look at the dailies and what's making the front page. Mazino.
Hey, hi. Maybe we might skip the dailies because you and I had a very interesting conversation from before, which we're going to be talking about in today's show. And as much as I was concerned about the riots in Kathmandu, in Nepal, you were concerned about something back home here, which we actually will be discussing about today. But I wanted you to talk about it from before we go into that conversation. You were frustrated with the JAM issue, weren't you?
I am.
Tell us about it.
So, we've sat down here and we've talked about, different solutions. There's always a committee being created, either is NUPENG or INEC or education or the public system, as to how can Nigeria move forward. Like you just gave us like a little brief of history. I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that much detail. And, they say there's a lot of things in the detail. So if we're having so much issues, AI and finger blending, I don't even know what that is.
Oh, don't you worry, you'll find out yourself, because it's a whole mess.
For JAM, which is supposed to lead you into, a tertiary institution where you get to learn more about your culture and, mix with people from different states and grow as a person, as a citizen, as an individual. So if the corruption starts right there,
where is it going to end?
What leaders are we going to have?
What hope do we have?
What is left? Because somebody said,
why, where, when, who?
Why and how? So
I understand your frustration. I understand your frustration, but I think as much as you know, you haven't even heard the half of it, because we've got very interesting guests for today, and that's what we're going to be talking about in the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to make sure that we make everything possible to make sure that goes perfectly. In any case, tell you what we're going to do. We've taken our time for for the dailies, unfortunately. Let's go on a quick break. I hear that we have our big report all scheduled in somewhere in the wings. As soon as we come back from this break, we'll be jumping right into the discussion. Stay with us. Morning once again and welcome. Our first big report this morning on Breakfast Extra. This will be our first matter for the day. Thank you for joining. Now this morning we bring you a developing story out of Lagos. Residents of Oworonshoki in Kushofe local government area are in uproar after the Lagos state government demolished homes along the Oworonshoki and Lekki coastal lines. Houses many said were approved, some in legally risky zones. Protesters, well, they've accused the government of issuing inadequate notice and providing no compensation, leaving families displaced and many homeless. As part of the protest, residents blocked across the Third Mainland Bridge, causing massive traffic gridlock early Monday morning. They refused to vacate until demolished equipment was withdrawn, insisting that their voices be heard and that their lives not be disregarded. Now, Israel Ifirobo filed in this report from over the week.
For the second time in a week, some residents of Oworonshoki are on the street. After Monday's protest on the Third Mainland Bridge, they marched to the Lagos State House of Assembly, demanding answers for the midnight demolition that left many homeless.
We want the House to please come to our aid, to come to our rescue and put stop to this. We have many people that have CFO, many documents with us. And if at all, even the document they asked us to provide, which is from LAPSCA, which is the approval and the certificate of completion, we have submitted a lot of documents, even some drawing. But they told us maybe there are some mistakes, we should go and amend this, amend that. And everything is under process.
The residents were addressed by some lawmakers who assured them that their grievances will be looked into.
I want to assure you that your house, that people, even your representative, the people that represent you there, Honorable Kolawon, has been trying to make sure they put stop into demolition of that building. And I believe our speaker will never see what is going on and accept it, even all the entire members. And I will appreciate you that the more you are still in peace without your protest, I want you to manage it like that.
You've listened to honorable members address you. I want you to go back home and tell thousands of others that you've claimed so that they can maintain peace on that road and in the community. It's very, very important. If it continues, then you are dragging us back.
Immediately you people leave this place, we'll summon the commissioner and the PAMSEC of LAPCA to know what is going on. And I assure you, in a very short time, we'll call you back.
Meanwhile, back at the scene of Monday's protest, security operatives were on ground to maintain peace. News Central observed that the entire area was calm and orderly.
Everything is normal now. Movement is, everything is okay now. It's okay, we thank God. Security and everything is okay now.
For residents of Ojuleru, the demand is simple: justice and fairness. Whether the Lagos State government will provide relief remains to be seen. In Lagos, for News Central, Israel Ifirobo.
And let's recap the situation briefly before bringing in our guests. The demolitions reportedly began in the early hours of Saturday, involving LAPSCA and a combined enforcement team. The state says it issued notice and had an amnesty period for unapproved buildings from May through December 2024. But many residents claim they either did not receive notice or were unable to afford to formalize their properties. Homes were bulldozed, people displaced, and in protest, residents blocked the inward lanes of the Third Mainland Bridge.
Now, let's move on to our conversation. Here in the studio with us, we have Okweyemi Ogunlami, Take It Back coordinator for Kushofe, and also in the studio is Peter Obule, community lawyer. Gentlemen, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us so early on a Saturday morning.
Thanks for having us.
I'm going to start with you, Okweyemi. Now, you led that demonstration. If I'm not correct, do correct me. You also have put together the community people, and you are standing in as their representative. First off, let's start. What led to the demolitions? What are these talks about? Notice or lack of it? How true are those claims? And what particular houses were targeted?
I want to greet Lagosians, and I would like to say this, that there are activities that have been going on underneath before the demolition took place. Before this time in Oworonshoki, they thought they aimed the watershore area. But unfortunately, in 2023, July, people at the watershore received a sticker telling them to remove their planks there. And then they came one morning with bulldozers and started demolition.
In 2022?
2023. With bulldozers. And they extended the demolition beyond normal. And then...
When you say beyond normal,
beyond
the
normal,
shoreline
even to the streets, far away from the shore. Then they started demolishing houses, even POP houses and all. Just started pointing, and they stopped people from taking the capture of the incident. That was what led me there. So when I got there, I took my media guys to start capturing events, to send to the news. But unfortunately, the police met me there with my crew. They stopped us, and I told them I'm a community journalist too. I could do things. I was arrested, taken in Black Maria to the tax office, was a tax force office in Oshodi. There, I met with Jeje Loye, who released me under 2 hours and told me that I needed not to intervene. I should try as much as possible not to incite the people. I found out that this is a kind of shady activities, and then we made noise about it. It was stopped. It was suspended after several House of Assembly protests.
This is 2023?
2023. Several House of Assembly. House of Assembly also set up a committee led by Akisonya Muhyiddin or something, or Nuruddin from Mushin constituency. The funny thing in the House of Assembly is, as you can see here too, they did not allow the representative of the people to speak to them directly. They chose representatives from other locations to speak with the people, which isn't normal. So people requested to meet with their representative. They said he wasn't around. We removed that. Then the House, after much agitation, because we weren't stopping, they came up saying that the community should go and make peace with their king. And the king kept silent. The king kept telling the people in the community, the elders, CDA chairman, that they want to blackmail him.
Okay, so now that we've included the king, how does his inclusion here impact the situation? Is the king responsible for the sales of these property to the individuals that are complaining? At
the House of Assembly, they summoned Jeje Loye, the head of tax force, to come around. He presented a letter to the House of Assembly showing what the king stated, that those areas were criminal hideouts. Criminal hideouts. Then that was why he requested that there was no peace, there was insecurity in Oworonshoki. All the boys that robbed from Third Mainland Bridge down there.
Can you give us an idea, first of all, for anybody who does not know Oworonshoki? We're talking about the foot of the bridge, where the bridge meets land, yes? And the houses that were built around that place. Am I correct?
At 2023, it wasn't that area.
Okay.
It was a separate area of Oworonshoki, the Mosafejo, Koka community.
Not close to the bridge?
Not close to the bridge.
Okay.
Meanwhile, before the time, prior to that time, we need to state the fact that the current king was the former vice chairman of Koshofe local government. When their father was late, he resigned and became a king. So since that time, before he was a king, we had a meeting as a youth leader in the community. My team had a meeting with him. We presented a document we called the Oworonshoki We Want.
Okay.
In that meeting, he stated to us that Oworonshoki would actually be developed, that he had an idea when he was in Lance, that he wanted to develop Oworonshoki, the face of Oworonshoki from Third Mainland Bridge had to show nice edifice, and people have to see Oworonshoki in different lights. So they had the premonition of what they wanted to do. Now, when they come at the people at the inward of Oworonshoki, they said all sorts of things, and we cleared the claims then. Fast forward to 2025. Meanwhile, we need to quickly say that a 5-year-old boy died as a result of the demolition. At the spot of demolishing his father's house, a 5-year-old boy died. Then a woman with pregnancy died. Nobody gave account of them. Fast forward to 2025, they came again, and then they started demolition. They didn't go inside there. They went to the front of the Third Mainland Bridge, and they claimed that those areas, they didn't have papers, they didn't have anything. Meanwhile, the April notice they pasted there. Oworonshoki, the PAMSEC or lab scale manager, wasn't aware of that notice. A woman gave account that when they gave that notice, they went to the lab scale office and they met with Oworonshoki, presenting the...
This was in April, yes?
This is April.
Okay, this April 2025. We're
Yes.
going to come back to that. Queen has a question that she's been holding back for a minute.
Thank you for giving us an update of everything happening in Oworonshoki. Mr. Peter, my question would be for you. The residents of Oworonshoki, do they have any legal option to, contest these demolitions?
The people of Oworonshoki have very strong legal option to contest the demolition itself.
Right.
Because even under Section 44 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, nobody has the right as government or as individual to demolish, to take away someone's property, whether movable or immovable, without adequate compensation and, notice. But, what they normally hide up or hide under is the Land Use Act. The Land Use Act actually was not a state law, but it was domiciled as a state law by the federal government under the military in 1978. Deliberately, it was a clandestine and surreptitious move to actually take away land from the people, with the intention that they had a good intention of making land, spread across, everyone that needs that land genuinely, which was not a bad thing. It was set up for that purpose. But we have seen that from the intent and purpose of why that law was established, it was not established for the good of the people. But why I say so is this. If you look at it, the Land Use Act knows quite well that there are pre-existing persons on those land, even before it was established as a decree in 1978. And these are people that have lived in Oworonshoki even before the land use decree was enacted.
Mr. Abule, I'm going to ask you to put a pin on that, hold that thought. We're going to go on a very short break. When we come back, I'll let Mr. Peter Abule continue on his submission here. We'll be right back. It's Breakfast Extra.
Welcome back. Earlier, I was asking Mr. Peter what legal options the residents of Oworonshoki had to contest the demolition. So, Mr. Peter, please carry on.
Yes, I was saying about the 1978 land decree that was enacted by General Olusegun Obasanjo, who subsequently became a civilian president in 1999 also. The whole essence of the land decree was, like I said, was to actually spread lands across people that genuinely need it for agriculture, for public purpose, for overriding public interest, like hospitals and all the lot. But, as, the government brought in those laws, they started, bringing different ideas. Under Jakonde regime and others, we have Jakonde estates, and we knew how it was built, that it was built physically for the masses. Nobody is saying the government cannot bring in a law for developmental purpose, for the welfare of the masses. That is not what we are not. That's not what we are. We are not against that. But the fact is that you cannot take people's land, ordinary people's land, and give it and allocate it to some other persons because they are elite.
Okay, so I think that now we need to understand exactly what the motive is for the government. Are they giving these lands that they are demolishing people's property from off of, are they giving it to other people?
Yes,
because if you say the 1978 decree was for public development, so you could have an infrastructure like the bridge actually displace people, which is okay. So in this case, are you saying that people are being displaced for profit, perhaps?
Yes, there's a particular project on, they call it waterfront.
Let me just tell
Please
you
obey
this.
me.
Without flogging the issue, you can Google the elite villa on the internet. That's the basis of the demolition of Oworonshoki. They are selling per square meter, 120,000 per square meter. You are buying 500 square meter for 60 million, 1,000 square meter for 120 million. And it's been, we actually, our agitation in 2023 actually stopped that advertisement. They removed it from law school, they removed it from the Third Mainland Bridge. When we agitated that, no, we won't allow it. So, and then the Oba of Oworonshoki had, after the agitation, used NIWA against the people of Oworonshoki, thanks to Amnesty International that curtailed that. Oba came again saying that the place will be used for, some places will be used for shrine. that people must be evicted in August last year. We objected at that. We will rise up.
In all of this, was there any talk of compensation?
No.
So they're being displaced and asked to go where?
Nowhere. Now, at this moment, they are trying all possible best to use the instrumentality of the state against the people. That's why they are coming up with all sort of things.
And that's not it alone. You see, the Oworonshoki is a complicated land issue when it comes to issue of ownership and the kinship that he has actually mentioned. The Oba of Oworo became, the first Oba of Oworo became an Oba in 2001. There has never been an Oba in Oworo until 2001. The person that has a control, that was the overlord of those lands around those areas, was the Oloto Ofoto. And it was a lot of Ofoto that sold to some other persons that have been there.
Okay.
Not even
so the original salesman is no longer in
it's not the Oba now, because as a result of this decentralization of Obaship, you have Oba of Oworo, you have Oba of Ogudu. They are all people that were under the...
So isn't that the bone of contention? Isn't that where everything falls apart in all of this?
Yes, and that is why someone like the Oloto Ofoto and the residents must actually go back to the Oloto Ofoto. If they have genuine claims and documents, the issue of compensation, the issue of the fact that they have been there even before the land use decree was created, must come into place. It's not because you cannot make a law in 1978 and want to displace people that have been there since 1950s or 60s without adequately compensating them. It's unfair.
So, Okoyemi, since the demolition, have you heard from the government? Have they come to say anything as to the people whose homes were demolished as to, okay, this is how we're going to compensate? We have a place for you guys to stay and all that. Was there anything? Have you guys heard anything from the government since the march to
the Third Mainland Bridge?
After they came in this, last week to demolish. Even in 2023, we have engaged the local government. They keep telling us they are not aware. The state government say members of the states are not aware of the demolition. Since 2023, even this that happened before we took off to the Third Mainland Bridge, the local government chairman came while I was there. He said to the press that he was not aware. And I was there. I led protest to you. You gave me the letter you wrote to Hamzat, the deputy governor, and you are still saying that you are not aware. And we just got angry and they shouted at him. And then we felt that voices of the people in Oworonshoki have been suppressed. And the next place to take up that we will be heard loudly will be Third Mainland Bridge. Because Third Mainland Bridge is ours. So we had to take up to the Third Mainland Bridge for people to hear us. I'm very sure at this moment they are aware. And as they are aware, they are coming up with all sort of allegations against the people just to evict them. And the state government is still saying that there would never be any compensation. And we are saying there will never be any going back.
And to add to what he said, I was also at the Lagos State House of Assembly in 2023, around that July period or so, where I actually, before we attended that public hearing, I wrote the Commissioner of Police, wrote the Ministry of Environment, wrote the Surveyor General's Office, wrote the Speaker of the House of Assembly, wrote the governor himself directly, and the letters were received. And it was on that basis that we had the public hearing. On getting there, they started, giving us different excuses. Some of the House of Assembly says they are not aware. The Ministry of Environment will say it's because the Oba wrote to them that they are shanties and they are.
But how many of these petitions that you've written actually include the cultural impact of the decentralization of the Obas?
Yes.
Because that is the main issue.
Yes, sir. And we actually informed the author of
and have they been informed? Have they come to tell that, okay, this is how it happened from the past and this is why these people were given these lands?
Yes, and that's why when she asked of the legal option, I said they have very strong legal options, just like the one that happened in Magodo Phase 2, when those landlords of Shangiga took the Lagos State government to court in 1988, and the court said they should give them preference. How
did that end? And if you compare it to currently, how do you think this will end?
The court said, and that's where the court is from the provision, from the side of equity, even if you don't have a legal title to that, but the fact that you are on that land shows that you have some right over those lands. And the court said then that 549 plus of those lands should be given to those landlords that are in that area, whether they are 10,000, like the court said, make preference, give them 549, but the government still went against it and still gave those land to some allottees and their own acquaintance and friends. Yes, And they sold it, and it was on that basis that they lost that case at the High Court. In the State High Court, Government High Court, Lagos State High Court. They went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal affirmed that judgment. They went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also affirmed that judgment. But we don't want this one to go through that org of litigation. Yes, if we can resolve these issues.
So before my last question, Okemi, you mentioned the king and then you mentioned the local government chairman. So the first question would be, is it the king that's in charge of Oworonshoki or is the local government chairman? Because now it looks like we're having different stories and nobody's coming out to
Cultural
say,
one, a legislature one.
Exactly. So nobody's coming out to say we are responsible for this. So can you tell us, so who, if an issue was happening, if there was a dispute in Oworonshoki, who was going to be in charge? Would it be the king or the local government chairman?
It is the local government. The king is just a ceremonial head in the community that assists to the welfare and a custodian of the cultural heritage of the people in the area. But unfortunately, generally in Lagos State, local governments are just boys selected by the godfather to take charge of the affairs of the godfather. So nobody's coming up to take care of the people.
Sorry, so when you say the local government chairmen are boys elected by the godfathers, are you now saying that he's not subjected to questioning by the Commissioner of Police? Because you said you wrote to the Commissioner of Police, and if he's coming to say that he was not aware of the demolition, so that means something passed under his nose into his community.
Things above him going on. Things above him going on.
And the painful part is about over 70 hectares of land that the government is about taking from the people of the community.
But so how should this all end? From a scholarly, lawyerly perspective and from a community perspective?
We intend taking the government to court if this persists, in as much as we believe that we have the belief in the court system.
Right.
And we still have that belief, notwithstanding whatever political influence the government may feel it wants to use. If we are not satisfied at the lower court, we'll go upstairs.
Okay.
But for the time being, we are still exploring ways to see those issues.
These low-hanging fruits. From the community perspective?
Our community is saying if the government cannot call for engagement, they would not stop the protest when they see caterpillar coming into their community. If you want to evict the people, you need to engage them. Even beforehand, if you have any developments to do, you need to engage the people. They are no animals. Right. So that's the position of the community.
Okay. Well, Okpeyemi and Mr. Peter Obule, I want to say thank you very much for coming out and giving us very detailed information about the incidents that happened from Monday here in Lagos. We'll continue to follow the story and hopefully that there's justice for all and people see that their properties are either given back to them or at least some sort of compensation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's take a quick break now. We've got another conversation inside the hour. Do stay tuned.
Welcome to Big Report on Breakfast Extra. This hour, we turn to the growing calls for electoral reforms in Nigeria as the country looks towards 2027. At a dialogue on the National Action Plan for Electoral Reforms convened by the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, stakeholders argued that the Independent National Electoral Commission needs more than tinkering. It needs a complete overhaul. They point to persistent flaws in election management, credibility concerns, and weak institutional independence as reasons why Nigeria must revisit long-standing proposals.
Now, one of the key recommendations is to revisit the Justice Uwais Electoral Reform Report, which has sat on the shelf for years. Among its core proposal is changing the way the INEC chairman is appointed. Stakeholders insist the process must be shielded from executive control to guarantee neutrality and public trust. The message is clear. If Nigeria is to deliver credible elections in 2027, reforms cannot wait until the eve of the polls. So, joining us now are two voices central to the conversation: Segun Shogitan, chairman of the Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network, and Dr. Sam Amadi, Executive Director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thoughts.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, Mr. Sopiton, let me start with you. Why is the call for electoral reform resurfacing so strongly now, barely 2 years after the 2023 elections?
Thanks. I think the reason for that, you could argue, is self-evident. It's the fact that governance is not working for people. The conversations around governance have been reverberating, in the national conversation for the last 2 years. It's been extremely controversial. The actions of both at the national and the subnational level of our political appointees have shown clearly that the interest of the people perhaps is not necessarily at the forefront of their minds and at the forefront of their intentions. And that has brought about the conversation about, what can the people do about this? And, every time that you have that conversation, it's going to dovetail back to elections. It's going to dovetail back to the leadership selection process. It's going to dovetail back to the fact that people seem to believe that they can't control that narrative. They really don't have too much of a say in who becomes their president, who becomes their governor, who becomes, the National Assembly members and the State House of Assembly members. So invariably, you come back to the issue of INEC. What needs to be done to ensure that politicians know and understand that if they do not do well in office, that they will lose elections. At the moment, that appears not to be the case. I don't think too many politicians believe that they must do well to win the next election. They know what they need to do to win the next election, but I don't think that one of the things that they think they need to do is to deliver good governance. So if you have that kind of situation, then obviously people are going to continue to talk about INEC, and electoral reforms.
Okay, so Dr. Madi, let me come to you. As the convener of the Abuja School Dialogue, what was your central concern driving this latest push for reform?
Well, thank you for having me. I think two critical issues. One is the fact that clearly, without electoral reform in some direction, Nigeria has been having electoral reform almost every electoral cycle, but maybe not hitting the point. So we think that if we don't do, maybe 3-4 reforms that are critical, you further damage the credibility of the election, and it's becoming very expensive to have bad elections. We see what's going on in Mali, in Burkina Faso, across West Africa. And so if you look at the latest Variety of Democracy rating for Nigeria, we've moved from a hybrid democracy to electoral autocracy. So our elections are becoming not just, flawed, as it was said in 2007 by the Supreme Court, but now almost no elections. And the implication for that, again, you see what's happening with the Supreme Court and others. So the implication is that we might lose this democracy if we don't fix election. That does not mean that you fix election, you fix the other side of democracy. Now, the second driving force here is that the reforms have not been based on what we call institutional and strategic approach. And that starts with identifying what is the real problem. So what Abuja School did, working with the Project Committee of NLC, TUC, and all IPAC, is to say, if you look at election, 23 ought to be a good election, but there are three missing pieces. One was the so-called vagueness around electoral transmission, real-time electoral transmission. So we think that it's important to, because of Nigerian jurisprudence is so incoherent, make it clear. And then let it become the fact that once you don't do that, results are nullified. So the commission officer has no right to collect any result not so uploaded publicly. And secondly, the courts are bound to discontinue them. So that you have to constrain the judicial aspect and the administrative aspect. And the second aspect is very critical. We talk about appointment of INEC commissioners. Yes, the best thing would be to move away from presidential power. But it's going to be difficult for the president to concede in this kind of parliament. So we propose an additional safeguard, which is even if the president keeps appointing, any person who has held party office, who has had party membership, and who have been appointed by a president or a governor serving in Nigeria in the last 5 years before appointment cannot be appointed. Anybody appointed, would no longer participate in party management, will not hold appointive office, elected office in Nigeria for the next 4 years. So the idea is very simple: is to create regulatory, disconnect conflict of interest. So we saw a big APC chairman was formerly INEC National Commissioner of State REC, and then we see in the case of Abia State former governor who was REC in Abia, where Roger Sakalo was there, later became his chief of staff and deputy governor and became governor. So that recycling chair, you reduce the partisanship, even if the president appoints. The president has to appoint from a limited, set of people who have not obviously shown any political affiliation or appointment. For now, for example, some REC are part of we are formerly commissioner with Abuja. One was commissioner or SA with Wike. So even if the president appoints, let them appoint from a carefully designed group of persons who are not evidently partisan.
All right, Dr. Sam.
And again, very critical. The idea that electoral, only people who won election can challenge the election. We said, no, you should create the right of groups and voters to challenge the election. And you can nullify election, not because I should have won or results are proven. If you don't follow the electoral rule, the judicial approach should be to nullify election, because you're going to create an incentive structure against rigging. If people know that they spend 2 billion, 5 billion, and the election, the victory can be nullified, then they would no longer, spend those funds to rig elections. So these are some of the fundamental points that are different from what we've done in the past. Yeah.
Dr. Mahdi, now I hear what you're saying, and it's very clear. You're trying to say, okay, let's remove any, or let's streamline the process when it comes to people who are being elected for governance or for office. However, I'm wondering how much consideration is being given to the greater mass of Nigerians, and I'm talking about the youth population. And seeing that you are the executive director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, this is actually a very interesting question for you, as well as Mr. Shopitan here. Let's take a look at Nepal. Nepal only just had a new prime minister installed. She was elected, Susila Kaki, if I'm not mistaken. Now, it's not her being appointed or selected that is the main thing here. It's the method with which she was selected. And it was championed by a youth-led movement. And the way she was elected, or I keep saying elected, selected, was over social media on an app that stripped away any of these very critical issues that you've just spoken about. Now, when we're talking about reform, my question is, how much consideration is given to the young population, the people who are supposed to be the ones who are governed, the people whom it bites the hardest? They're the ones who are supposed to be electing eventually. While you're streamlining the process for the officers themselves, how much consideration are they getting in all of this reform? I'm going to ask both of you that question, but first let's start with you, Dr. Amadi.
Okay, first, good question. Look, the Abuja School's premise is there are two ways we can make this change. One is a revolutionary way, which is what, quote unquote, and oftentimes violent, forget what happens after. Nigeria's dynamics, perhaps does not make that very attractive. We are a divided people. Anytime issues come up, this and other. But let's leave that. So, yes, if you have a revolutionary context in which you saw the Arab Spring, we've seen several cases like that, you successfully remove the status quo, then you create a change. You can even use voice properly, you can use Twitter space to elect somebody. But we are saying the other alternative for this unscripted, unpredictable, and sometimes ungovernable revolutionary process is the what we call electoral revolution. And then people come in here. For example, part of what we are saying is that why do you have to have a process where elections finish at the polling unit and then you go to collection centers? No. Just right there, where the young people are there, it's uploaded a publicly available platform where every young person with his phone can calculate and know who has won. So we don't have the nicety of waiting for a so-called professor to declare results. Results can now be officially released by INEC, but the real results have been known. Media houses, like you can call it. So this process allows young people to play key role because, one, they are the demographic that makes the difference in terms of voting. Two, you restore back their trust that this peaceful process for power transition works, because when the young people vote and they see the result and it's uploaded to a publicly available portal, that they can log in and do the back of envelope calculation and know that this constituency, this person has won, and the result stands, and it's not nullified by INEC during collection, and the courts themselves are not going to allow anybody to nullify that.
All right now, Dr.
Young
Mahdi.
people will restore back confidence in the democracy. So this works for the young people, actually.
All right then, Dr. Mahdi. Mr. Shokuta, what's your take on that?
Well, there are some points that Dr. Ahmadi made earlier when he spoke earlier, speaking about the electoral process, streamlining appointment processes to ensure that we have guardrails that prevent partisanship of electoral officers, and the question you ask is then turning the searchlight on the people, and I think that one of the things that we have to understand is that those changes that he spoke about invariably are designed to boost confidence in the process. And that is pretty much dead in Nigeria today. And that is very dangerous. So talking about the people, talking about the young Gen Z, the people who are turning 18 in the next 2 years, and who will perhaps want to, be excited about being able to exercise the franchise, but who are not because of the debacle that they've seen play out in front of them. They hear their fathers, their mothers and their uncles talk about the electoral process, and they hear the disdain, in the voice and in the conversation. If we do not fix the process and reverse this apathy, where you have less than 30%, less than 22% in some instances of the registered voters deciding who is going to govern the majority of the people, then you are asking for chaos. It's only a matter of time before the Nepal scenario plays out. I agree with Dr. Ahmadi that maybe, our social construct may not necessarily allow for that, but how long will that be? It's a matter of time before some sort of tipping point is reached and there is chaos. So we need to make sure that the electoral process is transparent enough to convince the average ordinary Nigerian, especially the young ones, that their votes will count and will be counted, and that those votes will determine the person that emerges as their leader. If that is not done, then Nepal is only waiting down the line. Every time that we have electoral reforms that are cosmetic and superficial, we're kicking the can down the road, and it's only a matter of time before that can trips us off. So I think that we have to pay very serious importance, and I'm talking especially about our leaders, if we can call them that, to understand that if they do not do something about, this very terrible apathy that we have today, especially amongst young people, it's only a matter of time before they enter the streets and take matters into their own hands. So it's enlightened self-interest, for our politicians today to understand that we've got to fix the system to avoid, having 20% or 22% of voting population determining the outcomes of the elections. And I also think that very quickly, one of the changes that I think we also need to make, perhaps, Dr. Ahmadi, I'm suggesting this to you, since you are leading the process, is to amend our electoral laws to prevent a winner emerging who has not won the majority of votes cast. So the standard practice in most jurisdictions is no matter what happens, you must win more than 50% of total votes cast. So if you have 3 forerunners, like we had in 2023 elections, where the eventual winner, won about 36% of total votes, and then the runner-up won about 32%, and the third place person won about 30-something%, you have a runner-up. So we need to, right now, our electoral law and the Constitution does not require a run-up. All it wants is a simple majority. And the condition for a run-up does not include you needing to win 50% of votes cast. I think that is a fundamental defect in our electoral laws and in the Constitution that has to be fixed. So if we take care of those things, take care of selection process for INEC, of electoral officials generally, then maybe we will begin to see the apathy reversed, and then we can, start walking back away from the precipice.
Mr. Shokuta,
as we speak today, we are on the precipice.
Now, Mr. Shopita, very interesting inclusion there regarding the runoff. I think I'm going to ask Dr. Amadi something on that ground in just a bit, but Queen has a question for you still.
So, Mr. Shaibu, given that the Nepal's Gen Z population are right in front of the recent protests, and we see that, they're asking for accountability and transparency, how can we incorporate that in our electoral reform, to design something specific for the younger demographic?
I think there are two things that will come. One would be to find a way to provide a feedback mechanism that, if you like, if possible, that is legislated, that compels the elected officials to listen to the people, especially the young ones. You just asked this, and I'm just thinking of the cost. So that will be one. Find a way to ensure that their voice actually counts and they do get a voice. So one of the ways that is done in other jurisdictions is to have some sort of affirmative action or representative rules that ensure that a certain number of young people are given access to elected offices and so on and so forth. Maybe that could help. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is that these Gen Zs are online all the time. Their phones are literally glued to their hands, and you can't get them to look up. Right? So how do we ensure that the information that they're getting off those devices are bits and pieces of information that reinforces their belief in the process, that reinforces confirms that their voice counts and that their votes will count. For me, I think that is the most important thing. If once they understand and they believe that if they go out to cast a vote, they can get out that very useless local government chairman, pardon the word, or that's useless House of Assembly member or National Assembly member, or that they can impeach. They can threaten their legislators to impeach a governor, maybe even impeach a president. Then you will have the attention of the Gen Z. But of course, we know we're very, very, very long way off from those types of things in Nigeria as we speak. But I tell you, those types of structures that returns power into the hands of the people will do a lot to win the Gen Zs over, because these guys, they don't think the way you and I think. They're a bit more irreverent. They don't understand that rules apply to them. They will keep asking you why. So I think that it's very crucial that we begin to look for ways to incorporate them.
Mr. Shopita, I don't know about that comparison there, how they think between us, because I'm not sure if I think Queen might be Gen Z.
I am not.
Well, Mr. Amadi, Dr. Amadi, let me come to you. Piggybacking off of something that Mr. Shopita mentioned, runoffs can be destabilizing. They can be very divisive. So in the take on reforming our electoral process, what electoral design could there be? Could you come up with that will ensure that we don't have these in the first place? I mean, runoffs, and however that would ensure that whoever the winner is, there's still a very broad margin of legitimacy when it comes to the winner.
Well, there have been debates around what they call difference between proportional representation and first past the post. The argument has been that maybe we should have proportional representation, which is the idea that you get, even the parliament or in the legislature, you get to have seats assigned to you based on performance. That's number one. So that there's no winner takes all, and it's much more inclusive. And again, raising the threshold. Now, what our constitution has done is informed by our constitutional history, which is that we are a country where we concern about ethnic and other differences. And so the design of the constitution says, to be Nigerian president, you have to achieve two conditions. So one, spread. So even if you have 60% of the votes, I didn't have spread two-thirds of, to 5% of two-thirds states, you are not going to be a president. So that condition, I think, answers to our history. So if you look at, if there are free and fair election and somebody gets 25% in two-thirds of Nigerian states, the chances is that he has gained legitimate 25%, 1/4, of the various ethnic religious tendencies in the country. Again, and you must only have simple majority, which is answer to the question whether people prefer you more. So those two square, for example, the US focuses on the electoral college, which is their own approximation of spread, but you might not have the highest vote. So the leader carries some illegitimacy that more people preferred X than Y, but Y had one more electoral college. In many cases, some of that victory would be something like 220,000 votes. We saw in Georgia, it could be something very minimal. So I think that what we need to do, I think the way we want to elect our president is actually good. It gives it a broad mandate. But what is missing is that the electoral system, you see, two things are involved. One is election is a voting to make it credible and accurate. Two, and that means the election becomes competitive because people can choose to vote out who they don't want. Two is to make the electoral system create legitimacy, broader legitimacy by being more inclusive. And so if we do proportional representation, number one, or raise the threshold so that even if you get to third of the votes, you also have to have 60% or more of the vote, like I said. In which case, if you don't have it, you enter into alliance to make up that vote with somebody else who has won. We saw an alliance in the Second Republic between MPN and NPP, even though it later floundered. But at least we saw where two parties, one major, one minor, came together and gave some ministerial position to others. So I think the idea of a more inclusive, a more politically legitimate electoral system is a good one. But let's first solve the problem of a credible election. Because if at the end of the day, it doesn't matter the threshold, people rig themselves to get that threshold, then it's worse than nothing. The real savior for democracy in Nigeria, and by democracy, I mean the stability of other transition of power. Let's forget about the economic and political production of goods and services and good governance. That requires more dynamics. But you have to have a competitive electoral system. And what underwrites it is the possibility that the person in power can lose power, vote that, and go home peacefully, like we saw in 2015. And what makes that possible is that people can vote free. Their vote is counted accurately, fair. And a system of announcing the results and a system of adjudicating disputes over results are just and fair. So we're talking about free, fair election. That's what all democracy is about. But that's one critical piece that allows us to see that it's competitive and therefore the vote counts. So I agree with you. But first, let's get the votes to count.
All right. Dr. Amadi, Mr. Shokutan, thank you very much, gentlemen, for giving us such a very interesting conversation here for our first big story on Breakfast Extra. We'll continue to follow this process, and we hope, like we have asked, that the Gen Z are incorporated into all of these reforms that we're speaking about come 2027. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go on a quick break. We've got another fiery conversation and education lined up for this hour. Do stay with us. Welcome back. It's big story time this hour on Breakfast Extra. The entire hour, actually, because it's a heated conversation. Our education system has been rocked by fresh revelations from JAM. A special committee on examination infractions has uncovered over 6,000 cases of technology and biometric-related exam malpractice in the 2025 UTME. Among these are 4,251 cases of finger blending, a method used to bypass biometric fingerprint verification. 190 cases of AI-assisted image morphing for impersonation, and 1,878 false claims of albinism by candidates trying to exploit special accommodation provisions. Experts warn that exam cheating has evolved, becoming systemic and involving CBT centers, schools, parents, and even tutorial operators.
Joining us this morning to unpack this scandal, Chuks Okpaka, who's an expert and consultant chief transformation officer, rated artisan services, former HP Enterprise and former Microsoft Azure Business Lead Africa. And we also have retired CP Fatai Owosheni, who's a member of the JAM High Level Security Advisory Group. And of course, Jake Ekpele, who's the chairman of SCEI and JAM Special Committee on Examinations Infractions. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. We're expecting Dr. Mohammed to join us. We will be expecting that maybe later on in the conversation. But, sirs, you're welcome. It's been a week long of seeing you gentlemen on media telling about these very interesting and crazy, to say the least, discoveries that you've discovered inside of the JAM process. A couple of months ago, JAM hit the news. There was so much talk about JAM and the rate of passes that they were recording. They came back, they said, oh, wait, we had issues, we went back, we're going to come back and give you the proper result. Mr. Jekekbele, please explain to us exactly what was going on. As the head of this committee, what have you discovered, and what should we know about these infractions that are being committed across the board, across stakeholders?
Thank you so much for having us. Give me 90 seconds and I will paint the picture. And then myself and my members will delve into it and give you the accurate information and perspectives. So again, I want to welcome your viewers. Before I begin, let me clearly say that the views and the comments that you will hear today from members of this committee are independent findings and opinion of the committee members. They do not in any way represent official position of JAMB, the Federal Ministry of Education, or any other government body. We are empaneled to do our duty to the nation. And we approach this assignment as a moral obligation, a national service, and a fight for the soul of meritocracy in Nigeria. The committee investigated over 6,400 suspected cases of malpractices, carried out forensic analysis, visited centers, and engaged stakeholders to uncover how examination integrity is being undermined. Our finding shows that technology is now being weaponized for fraud. We discovered over 4,200 cases of finger blending, where biometric fingerprints were altered to allow impersonation. At least 190 cases involving AI-driven image morphing, tracking facial recognition system. We also uncovered remote server breaches, backdoor codes in exams, software, and the use of hidden smart devices. Simply put, malpractice has moved from paper smuggling to advanced cyber fraud. Beyond technology, we saw weak regulation of CBT centers, collusion by staff of this CBT, pressure from parents and school, and poor enforcement. This is no longer just an exam issue, it is national security concern. I will delve into our proposition in the cost of time, but we propose AI biometric safeguard, stricter audit of CBT centers, stronger prosecution through special tribunals on special courts on malpractices, and national integrity campaign to shift cultural attitude. Examination body must invest in forensic technology, work closely with security agencies, and prosecute offenders swiftly. If we lose integrity in education, we lose the foundation of our future. The committee has shown light. Now it is up to JAM, government schools, and indeed all Nigerians to make sure that merit, not manipulation, defines our children's future. I think I will stop here. I took time to make this as an opening statement and to set the ball rolling, and to say that myself and my distinguished members, that I'm very proud of the report we have submitted, and we will defend every iota of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
So thank you so much, Mr. Ekpele, for giving us the background of the whole committee and your investigation. My question would be to Mr. Chooks. Mr. Chooks, we just heard about finger blending. I believe I myself wasn't sure what that is. So can you tell us exactly what finger blending is and how is it carried out in a real exam center?
We're hoping Mr. Chooks
By finger
is there.
blending,
Okay, good.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. By finger blending, we actually mean a new technology, an approach where, originally JAMB, when candidates register for JAMB, they provide their 10 fingers. This is done so that on examination date, candidates don't have problem of thumb finger not being able to authenticate them. So the JAMB made it possible that any finger you provide, you can actually be authenticated and gain access to the exam hall very easily. So, but during registration, what candidates do in connivance with the registration centers and CBT centers is that fingers are captured from different people, meaning that for the same registration number, you can have fingerprints from different persons, okay? This is done intentionally to allow multiple people to have, or multiple persons to have access to the same registration registered candidate, so that any of the professionals, exam takers can actually clock in either directly or through a remote center and sit for exam on behalf of the candidate. This is what we mean by finger blending. So meaning that the 10 fingers captured, you can see a situation where a fingerprint is for person A, second fingerprint for person B. You can have as many as 5, even 10, or multiple persons, their fingers appearing for the same registration candidate. This is what we mean by finger blending. In the technologies part also, we also uncovered what we call image morphing. Image morphing is where they use AI tools to doctor the images of the candidate, because JAMB by themselves, okay, provide what we call a multi-factor authentication. This means that they adopt multiple approaches to identify who a candidate is, okay? So they do biometric, which is why they capture fingers. They also do capture the liveness of the image. So they capture the image of the candidate. So, but by image morphing, we have seen situations where a part of the image is for maybe the face is for candidate A, and then another part is for another person. So the
Mr. Chiksopaka is frozen there. We're going to try and re-engage the connection there, but thank you very much for giving us an idea of the numerous kinds of scandalous attempts that people are using.
Yes.
So I'm going to come to retired CP Fatai Oseni. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. Now, you have been talking about multiple cases here in Lagos, Abuja, and other places in Nigeria regarding who are committing these crimes. And it's very interesting to note the kinds of people. You told that parents were very involved, but I'm concerned regarding prosecution. What has happened to the people who have been identified to be breaking the law when it comes to exam malpractices? CPO was saying, please, sir.
So, in order to respond to that, I will take, a step towards when we started this. Before this committee was put up, JAMB had been having series of cases like this, because I started doing security consultancy for JAMB since the late 2019. And what we had then was, simple cases of impersonation, where people will do multiple registration, looking for professional exam writers and, mercenaries to write exams, the CBT test for their children. And on that time, it was easy, because immediately after registration, before the exams, JAMB would have put all the data they have together, and were able to see that, someone has done multiple registration. And how do they do it? my name is Fatai A. Owosheni, they will go and procure someone who would say, I will write Fatai A. Owosheni. Someone will write O. A. Fatai. So they will, interpolate the names in different ways. And we were able to detect that in 2020. And what we did was to place detectives at the different centers. So as they were coming in to write the test, detectives were there picking them up. And I remember that we recorded like about 220 cases then. And of course, it was easy to prosecute because most of them, about 80 to 85% of them, did not give any trouble because they were caught right in the heart and they were arrested, they were prosecuted. We got conviction. There were some cases of denial that it stretched the prosecution process. And that was why JAMB actually introduced NIN into their registration, thinking that would solve it. But as we move on from 2020 up till this 2025, what was alarming was the technological sophistication of the fraud, and of course the systemic complicity, and what would appear like a cultural normalization of examination fraud, and that was what made this 2025 issue a mind-boggling, that made the registrar to put up a committee comprising of different experts. We also have cases where people just do result credential forgery and falsification, especially those ones going for direct entry examinations. You see someone bringing a level result when he or she hasn't attended any school. They just go and forge results, just like we used to talk of Oluwole in Lagos in those days. So they just go and write result that this person has 3 A's or whatever, and they tender it for admission for direct entry, not knowing that JAMB had a system that captured the results from all schools that are doing A levels. So when you tender that, they put it into their system, they'll be able to know that you've not gone to school. And of course, we got some of them. We had, I think at present, we have about 13 of them being prosecuted. Then when we were now doing this present assignment, it was also found out that there are cases that we call people that is sort of complicity, conspiracy by parents. We call it consultation. Guys that have opened shops online in this digital space, advertising that, Fatai Osheni, your child that has been writing JAMB exams that have been scoring low, this time around, if you register with us, we can get people that will do the exam for you, or they will come under the disguise of tutorial schools. It will now score 390 over 400. So parents, whether innocently or deliberately, because of desperation that they want their children to score high marks, they will go and pay 350,000, 500,000, 1 million to these fellows. And what do? They get people, just like Chooks was saying, they morph images. They look at me, they look for someone that resembles me, use the technology, take apart half of my face, join it with the half of the face of the other person. And when they get to the CBT centers, it will look like me. It will look like the other person. And they go in there. Then another one that is really mind-boggling is, mirroring the CBT centers. So these CBT centers get these professional exam writers, put them in another room close to the center of the exam, where they call a strong room. So they use the VPN, the network that JAMB has given to them, to network it to another room. So those criminals, the suspects or the offenders, they sit down in that strong room, writing exams for the candidates, their clients. So they will just tell the client, look, they can catch you if you remain idle in the exam, or just be moving your mouse as if you are doing something. Meanwhile, the exams are being remotely written for them in that strong room. So, and you know, since it's a computer-based thing, it's just for them to press submit. So those are the things that came up.
Interesting, Mr. Oseni.
In the course of this assignment, we did stakeholders interaction, and that was how we got to know that some parents are involved and, you know, accessory before and after the fact. And those are the things that came up. Those ones that require to be picked up and be prosecuted, the joint team is working on that because JAMB work with the police, the SSS, the ICPC, the National Cyber Crime Center. We've been doing this for the past years, and of course, we are strengthening this in order to let them know that all the methods they are bringing in, although in the digital world, because of the anonymity behind it, it is difficult. But at the same time, we want them to know that whatever steps they are taking, JAMB is already ready for them, and that is why we're clamoring that government should take this as a very serious issue.
There's plenty of hope in the last statement you made, sir. Thank you very much for that. But the amount of time, the sheer amount of time that it took you to explain and tell us the different ways that these infractions are being committed is mind-boggling. And one has to wonder how long it took it to evolve until then. So, Mr. Jacob Pele, I have to ask how far back this rot goes. Are we looking at people who have even graduated school that perhaps were also culpable here, that were perhaps themselves criminals? And how much of them have we put out in society, Mr. Jake Epele?
Hey, Maxim, let me, my colleagues have done very, very insightful analysis and interrogation of what we found out. I think there was one more thing I wanted to chip in before I answer your question. This morning I looked at the report again and I picked up what I would call device spoofing, where candidates smuggle in hidden Bluetooth device, phones, all kinds of devices. And they were able to use this device to receive and exchange answers in real time. That was one of the things that we're finding. But in answer, straight answer to your question, our examination malpractices in Nigeria has graduated from the usual crude method to paper smuggling to sophisticated technology-enabled fraud, making it a national security concern. Now, why is this happening? You know, and what can be done? Let me lay out what I call what we discover as some of the institutional weaknesses. Of course, poor regulation of CBT centers enable this collusion. You know, I think there's a need to, JAMB have done a fantastic work. And we're talking about JAMB here because they are open and transparent. Why yet? NECO, you know, so when, and they are also going into this CBT system. So we need to look at the regulation. How do you regulate it and make sure that it is properly monitored? We have inadequate vetting of supervisors and invigilators. That also is a problem, where we don't really know who are these people that work in this center. You know, JAMB, yes, recruited the center, but the owners of the center are responsible to the kind of people they employ. There were a gap in chains of custody of examination materials. You know, that also needs to be looked into. My CP did talk about cultural and social drivers. We find pressures from parents, school, fueling demands for shortcuts. 80% of our findings, parents will take the major share of that percentage because there is this drive to, oh, my child was the best in JAMB. My child has the best degree. So it is affecting, right now, I'm afraid of everybody, except when you are found not culpable.
Mr. Jekapele.
Certificates in Nigeria
Mr. Jekapele.
really interrogated.
Mr. Pele. Mr. Pele, Mr. Pele,
in a whole school.
Now, Mr. Pele,
they gave fake certificates.
Now, Mr. Pele, from everything that you have said, everything that Mr. Chooks has said, and also even the retired CP, it seems to be that these things only really kicked off when sophistication came into the process of writing exams. I mean, face morphing, that's sophisticated. Finger blending, that's sophisticated. So are we advancing to a point where we unfortunately find that these things can be manipulated? Is it better to have stuck to what it was from before?
No. What it was from before had its own challenges. What we have now is an amplified result, amplified issues. You know, what we had before had challenges. The Expo and the rest of them. Technology, which is good, but as technology is evolving, people are looking for ways and means of manipulating that technology to their advantage. Now, let me say this. JAM, from our investigation and interrogation, has one of the best technology so far. So far. We couldn't even benchmark it in Africa. We had to go to Europe and America to benchmark it. So what they have is better than any country, any examination body in Africa. Again, I don't speak for JAM. I stand for the truth, and I can defend what I'm saying. All right? So that said, the problem is not technology. The problem is us making sure that we live up to expectation by safeguarding the technology that we're deploying. I always call for adaptive technology. How many phones in our hands have we been able to utilize even up to 80%? No, sorry, 10%. You know, so there's a need for a proper interrogation of the technology. There's a need for stress test. So when technology is deployed, you do a stress test. You know, you deliberately have people trying to hack that thing and find out where the issues are. And JAM has that. JAM has a back end, a very strong back end interrogation method, you know, that they use in detecting this. That's why we were able to uncover this. If they didn't have it, we would have been at lost. So you can imagine, my dear brother, previously, it was impossible for me to sit in Abuja, Chooks in Abuja, CP somewhere in Benin, and we are all coming on your channel at the same time and talking, sharing information. This is what technology can do. Technology is not the problem.
Okay.
It's the criminals that is trying to undermine technology. And they have infiltrated into the education sector. Our education sector is in trouble.
Okay, so Mr. Jake, you talked about JAM having, you know, all this infrastructure and did he say backlog of details of data? But Mr. Chooks, every year we see that a lot of Nigerians, you know, applying for JAMs are failing. But we know that JAM generates over 22 billion every year. So can you tell us what reforms we can put in place? Because if they generate such money, having to have finger blending and mirroring in JAM, after, you know, Mr. Jake just said that they have all the equipment in place, is contradictory, because if they have all the equipment in place, how is it possible to have finger blending, especially in Nigeria where, you know, we're being identified with BVN and NRN? So how is it that they're not able to match these names and having one person have more than 5 fingerprints? How do we move?
Look, before he answers, my dear, the only reason why we're able to discover this is because JAM has what it takes for us to be able to discover this. We couldn't have been able to discover it. So it's not a question of, look, it would have been worst. It would have been worst. The word worst, spelled in capital letter. Chooks, please answer.
Chairman, yes, absolutely. We have said that JAM's platform today is one of the best. We compared what they have done, what they have put in place with other examining bodies in the UK, in America, and from infrastructure point of view, from security point of view, we know they are ahead. When CP was talking earlier, he talked about the fact that there's a lot of collusion going on, okay? So today, if we look at how AI or technology is actually assisting the fraudsters or the bad actors, there is what we call the camera you have in your that you use to capture images can be emulated. So software available today that can help in camera emulation. There are VPN extension tools today, meaning that the VPN network can be extended. These are available. There are spoofing technology today that are available. MAC address of computers can be duplicated. Okay, so there's a whole lot of technology that are available, and these bad actors are taking advantage of those technology actively. Of course, we have also made recommendations. When we review the structure, for instance, the finger blending, JAM today depends solely on biometrics. We have said this can be extended. You can also capture iris. You can read the entire palm of a person to be able to provide that authenticity in terms of identifying who a person is. So we have made recommendations. Of course, no matter the technology you put in place, you also have to be aware that as you put technology in place, the bad actors are studying it and providing a way of beating that technology. I think this is really what is going on. And I think the biggest challenge for us is really the fact that there is active connivance of those whom JAM has entrusted to help them to drive registration, to help them drive examination conduct in the whole country. So if a CB center that has been activated, registered, and given all the secret credentials to conduct an exam, become the very tool through which impersonation infraction is being conducted, how is JAM to stop that? Technology cannot even stop that, because they provide those bad actors with the IP addresses, they provide those bad actors with the MAC addresses, they provide them the information. The finger blending cannot be done by a candidate alone. So this is actually done in active connivance. And when people are involved to beat the system, they will beat it, no matter the technology that you put in place. So I believe the essence of this whole conversation around this is recommendations have been made to JAM, but this is something that fundamentally touches on our nationhood. The scale at which this has happened this year is staggering. And believe me, no nation can actually survive without meritocracy. This is why we are shouting, this is why we are making this noise, because we need to stop this. There are JAM systems today have provided those top-notch means of identifying people. We heard the CP say that they have actually integrated their system with NIMSI. NIMSI should be the single source of identifying who a person is. JAM is interfaced to NIMSI. So, but yet, the area where JAM has to interface with people, there is a breakdown in terms of the process because people are complicit. This is where the problem is. And this needs to stop. This is why we are shouting. This is why we are making this whole noise, is that we cannot live, we cannot survive as a nation with this level of fraud. We cannot survive as a nation with this level of infraction happening in our examination system. This needs to be stopped.
Mr. Chukwuka, I'm happy that you mentioned that interface. And I'm sad, however, that Professor Mohammed is not here with us. But we're going to take a break now. When we come back, I will pose his question to any of you to answer, because it's a very important one that we need to answer. Let's go on a break. We'll be right back, gentlemen. And you're welcome back. We've been having a very interesting conversation here about the rot that has been discovered by a special committee set up to look into exam malpractice for JAM. We've had with us here this morning Mr. Jake Epele. Not just him. Mr. Jake Epele, by the way, is the SCEI JAM Special Committee on Examination Infrastructure Chairman. We also have with us retired CP Fatai Owoseni, member JAM High Level Security Advisory Group, and also Mr. Chukwuka, who is Expert Consultant, Chief Transformation Officer. We were also supposed to be joined by Professor Muhammad Yahuza Bello from VC Bayero University, Kano. Unfortunately, I think the networks had other plans. But I'm going to pose a question to all you gentlemen. Maybe you could take it one after the other, or perhaps maybe just one of you. There's something that in all of your conversations that you've had across media through the week, there's something that has been less emphasized, and that's the role of parent-student awareness. What reforms will your committee suggest that will help parents or students come to the awareness what JAM is expected of from this process, so that JAM moves away from publishing, for defaulters to actually getting to the root of the problem here, to instead of waiting for these infractions to be committed, they already have created awareness and people know exactly what they're supposed to do and not do when it comes to JAM and the consequences should they choose to go against the law. Let's start with you, Mr. Jacob Pelle. Okay, you decide who will.
From the last question before.
A proper audit and accreditation of those CBT centers is important. There may be a need to begin to think and tweak the possibility of having one central examination body for either JAM or WAEC and all that is well regulated. There's a need to invest in forensic technology that makes cheating harder than passing the exams legitimately. You talked about parents, and I'll zero in on that, and I'll make my last statement so that my colleagues can make. We have called, you're not absolutely correct to say we haven't focused on what should be done when it comes to parents' engagement and all that. We have called for a multi-stakeholders collaboration, JAM, WAEC, NECO, school, parents, and civil society. We must share these responsibilities together. We did call for Integrity First campaign, where there is proper sensitization and dissemination of information. I don't think that any committee in JAM has been so vocal in the media like the committee that I'm very privileged, but I'm very proud to chair. We came out and we are telling the nation as it is, without being guided by anybody. So there's accountability and sanction, prosecuting offenders swiftly to serve as deterrent. Let me allow my other colleagues
CP,
to share their thoughts.
Mr. Oseni, I think that was you.
You media also needs to help us. Thank God for your MD. Martin, I know how hard you worked. Martino, right?
Yes.
How hard you worked to get all of us. That's the kind of journalism we need. We need people to desist from gutter journalism and practice journalism that informs accurately, leaving sensationalism behind. That's not journalism. That's gutter journalism.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Jacob Pelle. CP Owosani, sir, you were going to say something, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. Before we went on break, mention has been made of, you have a name, you have BVN. How were they able to do this? You'll be surprised to hear today that some people have manipulated the NIMSI process. Wow. Some people have double name or even triple name. And that is why even in the advanced world, you talk of identity fraud. So JAM had been taking steps before now to have collaboration with NIMSI in order to check this. Because in the course of interrogating some of these offenders and some of the candidates and their parents, which we did randomly, some actually would tell you straight away to say, when I was doing my registration, I was born in Kano, I've been doing everything that using Kano as my state of origin. But when I was doing my registration, someone say, oh, for certain reason, I have to use where my father comes from. And my father is from Osun State. So I had to, employ people to do another NIN for me. So as of today, there are people that have to name. And of course, JAM has been, working hard to collaborate and bring this to the attention of the people that are managing our NIN process. I'm also aware that even with NIMSI, there are a lot of work ongoing because they've detected this to check identity fraud. With regards to what is being done with prevention, I must tell you, this has been, on the drawing board for like almost 2 years now. Me, having been involved for, like I said, since 2020, we found out the security people, the police, the cybercrime unit, the SSS, the high CPC, we found out that the cost, the fund you spend in investigating in prosecution is humongous because you charge cases to court. I can tell you, let's take the example of the young lady in Anambra that came up to say, oh, she scored the highest mark, not knowing that, detectives and JAMB have the technology to find out that they went to a business center to manipulate figures. That case has been in court, and JAMB has to sponsor the investigating officers, the witnesses, the key witnesses in some cases. They move from Abuja to Anambra and different places. You get a court, court will adjourn. It is expensive, to carry out investigation and prosecution in Nigeria. And of course, that is why one of the recommendations to JAMB is to see how they can explore way of getting special courts to be handling cases, not creating an examination malpractice court, which would be, overflogging the issue. But, the judiciary can designate special courts to handle JAMB cases.
CP, sir.
With regards to what do we do? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I was going to ask you to round up because we're almost at the top of the hour, but go ahead, please.
So with regards to what we can do with prevention, the recommendation zero in and advise JAMB to make it a priority to continue with stakeholders engagement. If they need to add more to the social media handles, if they need to be doing a JAMB half hour every week or something like that, so that parents, some of them that don't know, we know. How do you explain that someone wants to write JAMB? He doesn't even know the amount. He will just say, my father had paid 9,000. He does not even know what is the cost of the JAMB registration. Some have not even read book of JAMB. So that's why we say, I think sensitization and stakeholders collaboration, town hall meeting should be prioritized by JAMB.
All right, gentlemen, we are out of time, but I can't end this conversation without asking Mr. Chukwuka whether it is possible to have an entire body run examinations in Nigeria, whether it be JAMB, INEC, NECO. You have just 30 seconds, so what do you think? Is this possible, and would it help the situation?
I think what policy we want to put in place. Remember that it's all like something here is the human element. I think the human element, if people are morally sound to do the right thing, ethically sound to do the right thing, we'll be able to solve, no matter how we want. The way it's working today, I think it is okay to make it more effective if people are morally and ethically sound and want to support the process. We made those recommendations to JAMB. I think it's about the human element. If the human want to do the right thing, they will do it, and it will work for us, work for everybody.
Gentlemen, let me say that I have had a very interesting time speaking with such intelligent gentlemen, and I'm sure that your efforts will yield fruit, and we continue to hope that we see a process where we have only the best go through these systems and that we can vouch for them after. Thank you very much for joining us for such a robust conversation. To all three of you, and even Professor Mohammed, who couldn't join us. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Wow, that was an interesting discourse now, wasn't it? It was. And you talked about this earlier this morning. Yes. And most of what you talked about was echoed by the gentleman that we had.
Exactly, and I like the fact that Mr. Chuks also mentioned that we're talking about humans here. Yeah, exactly. I was highlighting, they mentioned that, most of the issues are like parents. The reason why you take your children to special centers or, have extra lessons is because you feel like they're not learning more. So my question now is, the schools that you enrolled them in, if you have 100 students who are supposed to write JAMB or INEC and have only 20 people remain in the school, don't you think we need to address the educational system? Because if they're teaching them
lack
properly,
of trust in that system.
Why are they going out to do this? And then, we have we have the CBT centers as well. So based on the investigations, if they're able to find, okay, this center is doing malpractice, then they shut it down and they take their license.
Yeah. Your voice is loud now. You didn't ask them. But beautiful question there. I wish we had more time. We would have actually asked the gentleman. But hopefully we will have that opportunity after. Yes. Tell you what, it's the top of the hour. Queen here will be bringing you the news. Do stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to the headlines inside Breakfast Extra. My name is Queen Celestine. Now, the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers has accused the Dangote Petroleum Refinery of sponsoring division within its petroleum tanker drivers branch. NUPENG accused Dangote of resisting workers' rights to unionization and deploying what it described as falsehoods to undermine the union. NUPENG also accused the company of using a Greek gift of free nationwide petroleum delivery to undermine the union and stifle competition. In a statement signed by its National Executive President Williams Akporeha and the General Secretary Afolabi Olawale, the union on Friday dismissed a press release by the Dangote Group. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery had on Thursday dismissed recent allegations by the NUPENG that it banned tanker drivers from joining the union. Earlier on the news, Todimo Ige, a lawyer, joined us to put the issues in perspective.
Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, states that Nigerians have a right of association. Having said that, what that means is that Nigerian workers have a right to join lawful associations. So to answer your question, simply, Sita, it will be unlawful for any organization, company, or body to stop workers from joining lawful organizations or society.
And the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has threatened to mobilize its members if the Senate continues to block Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from resuming her duties. Akpoti-Uduaghan completed her 6-month suspension earlier this month, but the Senate has refused to allow her to resume her duties. Joe Ajaero, NLC president, criticized the situation, describing it as a frivolous legal technicality used to keep her off duty, calling it a violation of democracy and the rights of her constituents in Kogi Central. Akpoti-Uduaghan, through her lawyer, has already given a deadline for the National Assembly clerk to restore her duties or face legal action. Meanwhile, over 300 women's rights organizations under the umbrella of Womanifesto have condemned what they describe as the unconstitutional exclusion of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from the Nigerian Senate. In a statement signed by the convener, Abiola Akiyode Afolabi, the groups said that despite a federal high court ruling declaring her suspension excessive and unconstitutional, the Senate leadership has refused to reinstate her 6 months after the suspension was served. The coalition insists the continued denial of her seat undermines the rule of law, disenfranchises her constituents, and sends a dangerous signal about women's political participation in Nigeria. They are demanding Akpoti-Uduaghan's immediate reinstatement in full compliance with the court order, saying that the Senate's defiance of judicial authority is a direct assault on democracy and women's rights. And the presidency has officially launched Renew Her, the Presidential Women's Health Transformation Initiative, with a gala and awards night held on recently at the State House Banquet Hall in Abuja. The event underscored government's commitment to making women's health central to national development, equity, and prosperity. New Central State House correspondent Betty Nanweli reports.
Representing the President, Vice President Kashim Shettima reaffirmed that women's health is at the heart of Nigeria's progress, noting that healthier women mean stronger families, vibrant communities, and a more productive nation.
Renew Her is an answer to one of the nation's most critical prayers. Beyond delivering trusted health information and services, it connects women and families to an innovative AI-powered national women health digital hub. Through this hub, we'll drive geo-targeted national campaigns on maternal survival, adolescent health, preventive care, workforce strengthening, and community coalitions.
Led by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Women's Health, the Renew Her initiative will leverage artificial intelligence, digital innovation, and catalytic financing to close critical gaps, particularly for women in rural and underserved communities.
While Renew Her is more than an initiative, it is a renewal of trust, access, and outcomes for every Nigerian woman and girl, transforming their health from a peripheral concern to a central pillar of national development, prosperity, and economic empowerment.
The first is the Women's Health Nigeria Digital Media and Advocacy Hub, a tech-enabled, AI-powered platform that will deliver trusted, evidence-based health education. This hub will be our national voice for women's health advocacy and for raising the health literacy of women and girls in Nigeria. It will inspire healthy seeking behaviors, combat misinformation, and restore confidence in our healthcare system. The second is geo-targeted national campaigns across Nigeria. These campaigns will directly empower communities, linking women to services, stimulating innovation, and creating economic opportunities for women.
With Renew Her, the presidency says Nigeria is not only safeguarding the health of women, but also renewing their dignity, equity, and future as a foundation for national prosperity. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Uwili.
South African authorities have reopened the inquest into the 1977 death of anti-apartheid leader Steve Biko, nearly 5 decades after he died from brain injuries sustained in police custody. The move aims to investigate whether Biko's death involved any criminal act, supported by his family's legal representatives. Biko, a founder of the Black Consciousness Movement, died at age 30 after brutal treatment during detention, a case that shocked the world and intensified calls to end apartheid. The inquest seeks justice and closure for the family and society as South Africa confronts this dark chapter of its past. And that's all for the headlines inside Breakfast Extra. Now we go on a short break. When we come back, we'll have more conversations with Mazino.
Welcome back. It's the third hour for Breakfast Extra. Let's do another big report, shall we? Today, we turn our attention to Adamawa State, where fear has gripped residents of Malabu community following an outbreak of a suspected Buruli ulcer. Health officials confirm at least 8 deaths and dozens more affected. The disease, which causes severe skin ulcers and deformities, if untreated, has sparked panic and raised urgent questions about Nigeria's readiness to handle outbreaks in vulnerable rural areas. Authorities have deployed medical teams and intensified surveillance, but limited healthcare access, late reporting, and the stigma around the illness have worsened the crisis. Families in Malabu are living with uncertainty, unsure whether they or their children may be next. So to give us more details from the ground, we have News Central correspondent Aisha Salihu, who actually put in this report through the week.
Malabu community lies between Nigeria's northeastern state of Adamawa and Cameroon, about 17 kilometers to 20 kilometers away from the state capital, Yola. The community is now gripped by a rare and dangerous outbreak of a strange and mysterious disease. Locals have called it many names, but what they are battling with is a flesh-eating disease whose cause remains unknown.
Zuwa ya dan dade amma bai yawa ba sosai kaman wannan karo don shekarun baya shekaru 2 ko 3 da suka wuce bai wuce mutane 5 ko 6 bane suke da dauke da wannan abun wannan ciwon gafa amma yanzu ya zama akwai mutane kusan 30 zuwa sama.
They assume that it is not a case of the facility because when they came to facility they are going to inject them, so this is why they are fearing of, so they are not coming.
What we'll be doing now is to make sure that those that are affected in the community, let them come to the nearest facility in the Malabu and receive the dressing and also some antibiotics to aid healing.
For Ahmadu, a 50-year-old farmer, it began with his son and later his brother. Both died within weeks of contracting the disease, now equally suffering devastation from the disease.
na yi wata 3 can muka dawo gida wannan dotta Aminu yana zuwa yana wankewa gida yanzu wannan wata na 10 kenan wannan ba na gani zai kamar zai kara tun da dai ana da yawa kuma
At least 67 cases have been confirmed by health authorities. Most of the affected live in remote parts of Malabu and are too afraid, too ignorant, or too poor to seek hospital care. Only 8 patients have agreed to be admitted at the Modibo Adamawa University Teaching Hospital in Yola.
When results from the National Reference Lab is out, the causative organism can be identified and proper treatment, which has to do with the causative organism, can be prescribed by medical officers.
So our main aim now is to checkmate the spread of the disease, and that's why, since the result is not out, we advise them to come to the health facility.
Health officials warn residents not to rely on traditional medicine, which may worsen the infection, but fear runs deep. Many believe the disease is a cause affecting their lives.
Shine farkon abu shi kurjin haka nan kawai ya fita wani kan ban iya tantancewa ga inda na same shi sai dai kawai bulla shi a jikina.
Gaskiya ni tsoron da ya bani ɗaya ne dan har ga Allah da kan bai yawanta kamar haka ba amma yanzu ya yawaita kuma yanzu gaskiya ƙara karuwa ke dan yanzu bayan kama yana wani ma akwai wasu ma da dama wanda ya dan ƙara kama sabon kamu dan yanzu yaduwa yake yi ne shi yasa ba magana raguwa sai karuwa.
The Adamawa State Ministry of Health confirmed that samples have been sent to Nigeria Center for Disease Control in Abuja for histological analysis. Results are expected within days.
The health officers are on top of this. Like we keep on saying, there are emerging new phases of epidemics now, not only in Adamawa State, the world over.
Until results come in, the people of Malabu wait, some in pain, some in fear, and others in silence. For now, what they face is not just a disease of the body, but a crisis of access, information, and trust. But for the residents, the biggest question is not scientific. It's simple. Will they survive? In Yola, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
That was a brave report from Aishat, and this is clearly a crisis that goes beyond Adamawa. It touches on Nigeria's public health preparedness, community awareness, and the trust citizens place in the system meant to protect them. To unpack this further, we are joined by our very own Aishat Salihu. Aishat, good morning.
Morning, Queen.
Aishat, from your experience having been to Adamawa, what makes this outbreak, this also so devastating in this community?
Queen, I like to use the word. You mentioned devastating. It is indeed devastating. And I would say the report didn't even capture all of what I saw in the particular community. I mean, we have children who also have come down with this disease. And I would say that there is fear of transmission of the disease because some persons within the community mentioned that it first started with their brother, and later on to their son, and then to them. And then again, another thing I'd like for us to even point out here is that not just transmission within the community, perhaps it could even have gone to other parts of the north, because this patient who spoke with me mentioned that his brother, who eventually died, was admitted in BU, and BU is not in Adamawa, so that should also be put into consideration. But first of all, the first thing that matters here is it just borders on our level of surveillance for diseases, whether infectious or not. It just means that because this is not the first time we're seeing disease outbreak in Adamawa State, and so what does it say? As much as this is new, although the community people said that some persons have been dealing with this for over a year now. Since last year, even you heard the community head saying that this is not something that is new in their community. They've had patients since last year, but I guess it's just been pronounced as an outbreak just this September. So it borders on disease surveillance and also information, because most of those people, they don't know what is happening. They had initially called it a local Hausa name, a terminology terminology saying that the disease is something that where you shouldn't inject yourself. Once you do that, it kind of complicates it. So it makes them to go further to use the traditional means of treatment. But then noticing that the skin, the skin on the flesh on the skin is still tearing, and then it's eating down into the bone. So it's becoming really terrible. So it's more like there's now sensitization within the community, just like the state health officials mentioned, that there's now sensitization within the community through traditional and religious institutions to call on these people to visit the healthcare facilities. But then that particular community, I saw just one primary healthcare center. And from what I learned, most of the people who have this disease are inside the community. So there is now the issue of having to come down to the healthcare facility. And then the state health officials mentioned that what they are doing now is they're just treating wounds, and then using antibiotics, treating wounds and the flesh wounds on the skin and all that. So how does this even address the matter? Because there are fatalities arising from this disease already. Only 8 patients were admitted at Modibo Adamawa University Teaching Hospital. Those were the ones who agreed. And from what sources within the hospital, even though officials of the hospital refused to speak with us, but from what some sources are saying, that out of those 8 that were admitted, there are still complications. Some are comatose. There are 2 persons, as of yesterday, I learned 2 persons have also died. So these are so many issues to unpack, and then we're still waiting for the test result from the laboratory at the Nigeria Center for Disease Control in Abuja. And mind you, this is the second sample that they have gone back to take. As the first sample they took, I think maybe due to temperature of the area or on their way to transport it to Abuja, it got bad. So they had to come back here to take another one. And this further speaks to the issue of facility, the fact that there is no available facility within that state. Nigeria needs to do better. Queen.
Aisha, that's a very interesting story you've just told there. First off, I'm very interested to know what the locals called the disease at first. You said they used the local term to explain what it was, telling don't inject yourself or it might get worse. But what did they call it in local terminology?
I can't really remember now, okay. But then it was a Hausa, it's something that in Chihuahua or something, it's a Hausa terminology. Okay. From what they are saying is that they think it's a disease that you shouldn't use injections, just go on and treat it locally. But another thing I'd like to even point out here is that the fact that the state health officials, there is some sort of, they are hiding information. As a matter of fact, we tried to reach out to the commissioner at the time. He mentioned that he's not available. And then we met with the director of public health, the acting director of public health, and he was even the one that is granted interview, because on that particular day when we went to the community, they were delivering some health commodities to help with treating the wounds arising. And now even people at the Ministry of Health, there's little information. The only thing they're saying is they're just trying to remove or sensitize people from whatever conception or misconception they have about the disease. Even also the officials at the Modibo Adamawa University Teaching Hospital, when we approached them for interview to know what the situation of the patients that they have in their facilities is, they mentioned that the patients they have are state-owned patients. Please, emphasis on state-owned patients, and they can't give us information about them except we get authority or hear from the state itself, the Ministry of Health in the state, that's the executive, maybe the executive secretary of the Primary Healthcare Development Agency in the state. But although those patients have been reserved at the isolation center, and then they're talking about the disease may be infectious, so there's the isolation of patients. Now, my point now is, so how do we then look at prevention? If by now we don't even know the cause of this disease, then what about prevention for people who are still within the community because there is fear of the disease spreading already. What about prevention, then treatment? Is the treatment really working? Whatever they are giving to these patients, is it really working? And then how come we're still having fatalities from this case?
So, Aisha, thank you for giving us the external factors regarding this disease and also the biological nature of it and how we still don't know exactly what it is or how the locals feared it. But I want to take this to a much more internal point of view. On your side, when you got the call to come investigate this issue in Adamawa State, you had to first of all get in a car, go there and then interview people who told you about how bad this disease is, how they've lost brothers, family. And I'm wondering, how did you deal with that? Also noting that there's a risk of infection.
Okay, so upon going to the community, we realized that at first we didn't even know that there may be risk of maybe the disease spread and transmission, because we just went, and then until we got there, that was when we started hearing stories from those people. And I also want you to note the fact that this community is an agrarian community. Most of the people there are farmers. They indulge in crop and animal production. So most of the people we even spoke with, a young boy who in that video, he mentioned that he was on his farm one day and he just noticed this thing, and then since then it's just been a boil popping out from his leg and then spreading, eating the flesh and then spreading. So now, and then we also noticed that that particular community, there is poor infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, there is no potable water drinking source. I think we saw about a few rivers. It's just one river where you see children bathing in that river. They defecate in that particular river, and also they fetch that water to take it back home for cooking, for any other thing, domestic use. So it just boils on, we need to find the causative organism, responsible for this. Is it from the water source? Is it from the farmland? Is it from, so there's just a lot of information that is not really available, a lot to unpack. And again, that is what is even driving the lack of trust, because some of the people there, even when we're coming back out of the community, the residents, I told you, it's a border community between Nigeria and Cameroon. So most of the security people we met on the road, they were even asking, what is happening? Do we need to run? What is going on? There's just a lot. So there has to be more information available, and then the health officials within the state has to do more about telling the people, this is the cause, this is how you prevent, this is how you treat, please come to the hospital. And then we should also put it into cognizance that this Buruli ulcer, suspected Buruli ulcer, is one of the neglected tropical diseases, and then it's ravaging Adamawa State at the moment.
Aisha, let me just take you back a little bit. You mentioned that most of the people that you spoke to were farmers. And we can also see that they're talking about this ulcer can be caused by, stagnant water. So it comes, now I'm thinking, if you said you spoke to most of the farmers, are their farms flooded? So are they farming while their legs are in this stagnant water? Do you think that this might be the cause? And you also mentioned the young boy who said he was at the farm and next thing, he felt a sting, and then next thing, this whole disease. So do you think it would be their farm, because you mentioned, talking to most farmers?
Okay, so right now, I cannot really particularly tell you what is the cause, because that is the function of the health experts, the medical officers, and even those at the laboratory at the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. But what I can say is that, like I said, there are farmers. Some indulge in grain farming, especially rice. And you know how the farmland for rice is. There is a water channel that should go into the farm, and so that alone. there's that issue of it could be from the farmland, it could be from the water underneath the soil, it could be maybe a bacteria or something, an infection from there. So that remains to be unknown. But what I'm more concerned about is the fact that the health officials, there is delay. I mean, if there are 8 fatalities, and that is even official, the official figure, because from the people we spoke with, some said they have lost 2, they have lost 1, they have lost 3, they have lost this. So it means even the 8 that the government is saying, the 8 fatalities that the government is saying has arisen from this may not even be the true figure, because like I said, there is underreporting of this case. So it just goes further to say that where is the swiftness, I mean, in action for the state health officials and also the NCDC in Abuja. The first sample they took, they said it would take them 10 days before the results would be out. And now they have gone back again to take another sample. So is it going to take another extra 10 days whilst we have the fear of people losing their lives? There's so many things here to unpack. And then how do these people even, first of all, prevent themselves? And then some of them have been dealing with this from last year. I mean, imagine having an injury on your skin since last year. I mean, not just an injury, an infection, I'd like to put it that way, on your skin since last year, eating deep, tearing the skin. We couldn't even put all of the images in the video because they are really gory because of viewers' discretion. So it's just a lot to unpack.
Aisha Salihu, thank you very much. It is indeed a lot to unpack, especially in a place where health care is very difficult. But we hope that they get at least something to help alleviate the pain and at least an answer to what exactly this disease is. To you, I say thank you very much for such brave reporting, because I don't know if I would have went, even if Mr. K called me. Sir, I'm not going.
As you know.
But thank you. Thank you very much, Aisha.
Thank you, Aisha.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Now, we've got our Weekend Warrior Award coming up. You'd find out who to up next. And you're welcome. It's time for our Weekend Warrior. Now, it's hard to overstate how tough things have gotten in Nigeria. Inflation bites, jobs are scarce, corruption sneaks in everywhere. Many of us have seen people tempted to clutch at opportunities even when they know better. Morale is low, trust is fragile. We often hear stories of shortcuts, compromises, quiet betrayal. Survival sometimes feels like the enemy of conscience itself. But there was a time when social conscience was high, or at least loudly visible. Heroes like Ken Saro-Wiwa, brave whistleblowers, honest community leaders who risked everything so others could see the light. We admired them and we needed them. But lately, those stories, they're rare and they're very distant, almost mythical. Most days, hope is the thing that quietly survives behind closed doors.
But when all hope seems lost, then comes someone like Faiza Abdulkadir in Maiduguri, Borno State. A cleaner who earns just 30,000 naira a month had nearly 4.8 million naira mistakenly paid into her account. What did she do? She returned it. She said, "The money does not belong to me," and that she wanted peace of mind and to avoid God's punishment. She spent days completing the process, not for glory, not for fame, but to do what she knew was right. When the National Orientation Agency heard her story, they said she chose integrity over temptation. In a country where everyday citizens are often let down by those in power, Faiza has flipped the script. She has shown that honesty isn't a luxury reserved for the wealthy or the comfortable. It is a choice available to all of us. Her action is a gentle but firm indictment of leaders who mismanage billions, while ordinary people like her, with so little, still cling to principle.
Admirable. The recognition she has received from both the authorities and the wider public is heartening. But beyond the certificate and cash gifts, what matters more is the narrative she rewrites. She forces us to ask ourselves, if someone with so little can return so much, what excuses do the rest of us have? Now pause and think of her living conditions. On 30,000 naira a month, she likely battles rising rent, fuel costs that swallows transportation fares, and food prices that double at the market from one year to the next. A bag of rice that cost 35,000 naira a year ago now edges closer to 70,000 naira. Even a simple loaf of bread, once 500 naira, has left far beyond the reach of most families. Yet, out of this scarcity, Pfizer still chose conscience over comfort. That is what makes her rare. Because in a season when survival screams louder than values, well, she still chose values.
She does. Pfizer's prize is not the public praise she now receives, the articles or the applause. It's the hope she hands to every Nigerian watching. Hope that good people still exist, that even under crushing hardship, there is someone who values character more than convenience. Her honesty becomes a beacon, a reminder that integrity is more powerful than money in a moment of error. And today, Breakfast Extra is proud to award Pfizer Abdulkadir our Weekend Warrior Award. Her courage, her choice, her example, that's what makes a hero in the rough.
Absolutely. Hero in the rough, indeed, she is.
Masino, if I mistakenly transfer money...
Gone. So,
I said mistakenly.
If you do, not anybody else, I'm honest enough to return it, but if you do, because it's like you have 4.8 million that you're not using again.
If I just mistakenly...
Gone. You're asking again.
Out of a budget.
Budget, you have more? If it's a small part, but that just highlights the Nigerian concept of when is my turn to blow or to shine. God can do anything, even if it's this is the process. You know, Nigerians, we are honest people.
We are.
But we're under so much condition as making crayfish bend. So you have to ask yourself now, and it's a personal thing because it's something that not many people would know if it ever happened. Would you return such an amount?
I think so.
You have to ask yourself whether on a daily basis the things that you do reflect a non-selfish person, an altruistic person.
Right.
But the truth is that for most of us, we have just said, I'm suffering too. So I'm just going to, you know...
Yeah, God.
The very simple
God
things.
that gave me that money.
If you had an opportunity to get in front of a guy inside of a traffic jam and you know that it was a bit too rude, would you do it, or would you just let it, or would you let him go through the normal process? We lack a social conscience in Nigeria.
Right.
And it's only human when you've been beaten with such conditions that you begin to, you know, find alternatives and very easy alternatives because we do suffer. Please, if you have one small 4.8
Can you mistakenly transfer to Mazino?
Please mistakenly transfer. Please.
You know,
we'll talk about the return after. Maybe I'll return 5 million with interest, maybe in 6 months. I don't know. But.
So the thing is, you know, what Pfizer did is an example of if you strip people's, if you take people out of their comfort zone, who are they deep inside? Are they nice people? Are they kind people? Are they their brother's keepers? You know, and you know, with the challenges that were faced from, you know, the economy and price of food, inflation, tax here, jam there, visa here, bank there. It's like one thing, you wake up in the morning and like, okay, what's my daily bread?
I've just connected it with something else that we discussed.
Tell me.
I just connected it with the very first conversation you and I had this morning at about 5:45 a.m. and we were discussing this show, and you talked about the fact that when parents are involved in the examination malpractice system, who are we raising? Because the truth is, you're not just conditioned to be so, you take sample, you're influenced. And if our parents are influencing us to do the wrong thing, like examination malpractice, how much more are they influencing us to do? Especially with times that are hard. Are we bringing up strong characters, or are we saying, you know what, it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Especially in a system where...
I'm going to bring you up to survive, you know, to, you know, fight the system itself and survive anyhow that you can. Do you blame parents? Because they want the survival of their children, and if this is the jungle that we find ourselves, why not equip them with the tools that they need? And in most cases, these tools would be, well, criminal, like we discussed inside of the JAM conversation. Then there is argument for virtues. How virtuous are you? From what kind of family are you from? Do you want to pass this on to your children? Do you think that it will make them thrive in such a... this conditioned condition.
And you know that we're in a nation where a lot of people, especially when you ask the young ones, who's your role model? My mommy. Who's your role model? My dad.
The amount of influence.
You know, so if your parents are doing this in the tension of, oh, I need my child to pass, they need to go to university, this and that, there's already tension. So everything is kind of rooted in fear. rushing and trying to, you know what, let me grab and grab. But anyway, you know, back to Pfizer, it's amazing to find somebody who is earning 30,000 naira. If we talk about, you know, as a cleaner, we're sure that she's cleaning, you know, and we're not sure how many households she has access to cleaning.
I hear she got a reward somewhere in 7 figures, if I'm not mistaken.
1 million naira.
Yeah, here's the thing. I do not believe that you can give a person that much money and expect them to do well with it. I think along with that money, you need some sort of orientation, how you can use this money to benefit you. Because somebody might just go and buy a motorcycle and that's it.
Right.
But then another person would invest it into something that will help them continue to thrive. So I hope that she got that orientation as well. That would be the biggest gift that she could
She
get.
also, you know, they also mentioned that she had kids. So, you know, I also read that, you know, some people would have advised that her kids were being sponsored. So that would have been a better way to show, you know, scholarship. Because again, 1 million naira, how many?
Give a man a fish and he'll come back tomorrow. Give him the net and he'll forget your name.
Well, well done, Pfizer. You did amazing.
That's why Pfizer Abdulkadir shines so brightly for us this weekend. She has reminded us that character still matters, even when survival is hard. So let's be honest. Returning 4.8 million naira when you're earning just 30,000 naira a month, it's no small feat. Some people would say, "Now God, now I ain't butter my bread, or you know, that's my own." Others might quietly keep it and call it, you know, destiny and shift to Benin Republic and live there the rest of their lives. But Pfizer chose conscience over convenience, and that's why we've called her a diamond in the rough. But here's the big question to all of you out there. If you were the one here, what would you do? Integrity sounds noble when we're talking about someone else's test. But when the alert hits your phone and it's millions sitting in your account, the temptation is real. That's where we separate theory from practice. So what did we do? We took the conversation to the streets for a Vox Pop segment here on Perspectives, and we asked Nigerians, 4.8 million naira mistakenly paid into your account. What would you do? Let's hear their voices.
At first, I won't do anything. I just allow the money to the account for like 1 month. If nobody call me, what's it low? What's it low? But if the person should call and say, "Oh, I transfer so and so and so," then it's fine. We'll do the refund. But after 1 month, no contact. That's gone. No, there's nothing anybody can do about that. Well, to the lady, she's a good Samaritan. Let me use that word. She's a good Samaritan, and we need people like that in the country. Do you get? Because I feel it is the grassroots. Once we start healing the issue of corruption from the grassroots, then I feel it's whenever people goes down to the government, we kill it.
Well, some may, but I know that most may not, given the present economic realities we have in the country, you know, which have pushed so many people into doing certain things that are criminal, that are not acceptable in a normal society. You get it? But it takes that has, you know, the conscience, the lively conscience of God, know that this money is not yours, it's somebody's money. That person will be somewhere sorrowing while you take the money to go and enjoy yourself. It's not really, to me, it's not reasonable. Return back the money.
Honestly, that's not supposed to be my business. It's just that it's not mine. Something came to me that is not mine, and I am returning it back. Whatever they do with it, I am not supposed to be interested in that, right? So I don't tend to eat what I did not sow.
Most Nigeria will not return the money, I'll tell you. Nothing but this, because of what is happening in Nigeria now. Maybe they will believe, maybe it is God sent. Maybe it's federal government that sent the money, that okay, this is one of the national cake they need to eat. So, and I will just spend the money, I will return the money. Because returning the money is not the solution. Because who do you want to return the money to? Is it the police? You know the set of system that we have. Returning the money to police people, you know what happened. People have been doing this, and at the end of the day, there's no result. So for me, my own opinion is that at least I will wait for some times, maybe for some months. If there is no traces or the other way, then from then I will spend money. I say, God, thank you. I'll be praying. Maybe God wants to open a way for me. That's it.
If you go to the police station, that's not the right thing to do. because police cannot guarantee. They might come after you. The law, financial institution in Nigeria might come after you later. But the court, you understand, after notifying the court, they are going to give you, I think, it's a kind of maybe a paper. Once it's done like that, so you have no problem. So they will be the one to tell you exactly what to do, exactly. So, and you cannot keep the money to yourself because it is illegal. It's not your money. But the court will direct you on what to do. What if it were you? I cannot keep your money because the person must have worked hard. To be able, money. You have to work for your money. So if mistakenly I work harder for my money, by mistake I transfer it to somebody else, and the person think, okay, yeah, this is a miracle. No, I'm going to come after you. That's it.
Be honest, 4.8 million naira transferred to your account. I like the first guy. Like, he was honest. He was like,
Say sha.
Sha, very interesting there. But while we joke about it, I would hope that most people would return the sum because that's the right thing to do. I would also hope that I would return it as well. It's been a fantastic show, hasn't it? It's been a good one. We've enjoyed today's show from the very first hour up until this one, and we're hoping that tomorrow that you join us and would have a similar, something even better. Yes. So join us tomorrow for Sunday edition for Breakfast Extra. This is from us to you saying our goodbyes. Now we've had a great show, and hey, goodbye for now.